Honorable Chairperson and respected members of the audience, a very good morning to all of you all. First of all, let me clarify that I'm not a doctor. I'm a PhD student. Okay. For want of time, I would like to directly go on to the objective of my study. But before that, I would just like to focus that this is the question that we will primarily be dealing with. And just to go through the rationale, the introduction of the study, the overview of the constructs and the supporting literature. Now I come to the main objective of my study, that is to examine the interrelationships between overall self-reported and perceived emotional intelligence as well as facet-level emotional intelligence and the big five dimensions of personality, to determine whether the construct of perceived EI can be differentiated from that of the big five factors of personality. From the reviewed literature, these are hypotheses that were formulated. Self-reported overall EI would be negatively associated with neuroticism. Self-reported overall EI would be positively associated with each of the personality factors of extraversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. The extent of the overlap between overall perceived EI and the big five factors of personality would be up to the moderate range, thereby differentiating perceived EI from personality. This is the sample, 221 software employees, 22 to 35 years of age with minimum of 12 months of experience. And these were the tools used for the study. For emotional intelligence, it was the Swinburne University Emotional Intelligence Test, and the workplace version was used. And we can see that these are the five dimensions of personality that were measured. We can see that. And for personality, the Neo-FFI, which is a very famous personality test, which measures these five dimensions of personality, Neo-FFI was used. Standard procedures were followed. The data analyses, mean standard deviation, and Pearson's product moment correlation was computed. The data were also analyzed for gender differences, as well as for normal distribution curve, and reliability of the scales were also computed. Now, if we come to the results of the study, we see that the three factors of extraversion, openness, and agreeableness, the ones that I'm circling in red, are related to total emotional intelligence, that is this factor, on an they are correlated on a moderate range. The moderate range is 0.30 to 0.49. So we see that three of the factors of personality are correlated with total emotional intelligence on a moderate level. But we see that neuroticism, which is another factor of personality, and conscientiousness, the ones that I'm circling in red, are related to total emotional intelligence on a slightly above the moderate range. And the data were analyzed separately for gender differences, so that is why you see an F and an M for neuroticism and conscientiousness. So if we come to the main results of our study, these are the detailed results. I won't be elaborating on all of that. I will just focus on the main results, which are related to my hypothesis. That is, self-reported overall EI was negatively associated with neuroticism here, and positively associated with each of the factors of personality: extraversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness for the entire sample regardless of gender. So we see that the first and the second hypotheses were supported. That is, self-reported overall EI negatively associated with neuroticism and positively associated with the rest of the personality factors. Now, coming to the third hypothesis of my study, which is the main focus of my study, we see that it has only been partially supported because the extent of the overlap between three of the big five factors of E, O, and A have been in the moderate range, but the extent of the overlap between two of the big five factors of N and C have been slightly above the moderate range. So only partial support for the third hypothesis. So we can only say that thereby differentiating perceived EI from personality noticeably, although lesser than the expected extent. These are the limitations of my study, which are there for any correlational type of research. I would like to focus on the strengths of my study. This study was conducted during the recent global recession, and the IT industry was hugely hit by that. So this type of study was never really done before in India, measuring the variables of my study. So this leads to a very important contribution of this study, that if the extent of the overlap between perceived EI and personality can remain fairly moderate despite the prevalence of strong situational and temporal influences like the recession, we can say that evidence emphasizing perceived EI as a construct noticeably different from the five-factor model of personality has mounted, although I would definitely like to say that more research is needed in this area. And these are the suggestions for future research: cross-cultural comparisons, multi-rater perspective, other types of populations, and taking into consideration industry-specific factors. And thank you very much.